Hey everybody, Greg Conley here. I just want to add a quick note before this show starts. I just right now edited the podcast you're about to listen to together, and unfortunately, things got screwed up. Not too bad, but the big problem is that if you listen to this show without listening to this introduction, you'd think I was a giant jerk. Because it seems as if every single time Art answers a question, I interrupt him to ask another question. And while I indeed probably did that a few times, as is my nature, I didn't do it every time. So that is actually some weird problem that came up when recording the audio that I tried to solve, but unfortunately I did not have enough time nor the resources to really fix it up, which is truly a story of a B-movie. And so sorry about that, but this is one hell of an interview, including Art almost leaving me speechless at the end. And I want to thank him again, and thank you for listening. So hit the intro music and enjoy. Conley here with the 35th edition of the Your Video Store Shelf podcast. As I record this, it is Thursday, May 17th, and just yesterday, on May the 16th, the latest film from Art Camacho, Half Past Dead 2, starring former WCW and WWF wrestler Bill Goldberg and rapper Corrupt, hit stores, and Art Camacho is joining us on the show to promote that very film right now. And I need to correct myself. I lost track of my dates. It was actually Tuesday, May 15th that the film came out, not the 16th. That was pretty bad. Nonetheless, it's out there, and let's hear a bit about it.
You know, Half Past Dead 2 was a really, I think what we tried to do with this one that was different from the first one was that we wanted to make it very gritty. Very gritty. And this one's a story about redemption with Goldberg and Corrupt, and it also is kind of a buddy film because it's really interesting, the chemistry that develops between Corrupt and Goldberg. Half Past
Dead 2 was produced by the very great Andrew Stevens, who we've had a lot of discussions on this show with the likes of Steve Latchall and Jim Wynorski. How did you get hooked up with Steve? Andrew.
Andrew is an incredible guy. I got to give that guy credit. I mean, he started out doing these stuff. First off, as an actor, and then producing these small little independent films, and then at one point he became one of the biggest producers in Hollywood. Producing Stallone and Snipes and name it. He's incredible. And with him, I first worked with him many years ago, probably in the early to mid '90s, when I was doing a lot of choreography with Don Wilson. And we did, I think it was Grid Runners. I don't know what the final title was, but we did a film called Grid Runners, and Andrew produced it, and obviously Don starred in it. And that was my first encounter with Andrew. And we did a couple films with him and Ashok. And then in 2001, I hadn't heard from him in probably like 4 or 5 years, and he called me up and said if I wanted to go to Germany for a few months to go do Half Past Dead. And I tell you, at first, it didn't sound appealing to me because I'm a family guy and I don't like traveling too much. But in the end, it sounded real intriguing because I was a big fan of Steven Seagal's, and I thought this was a great opportunity to work with him. And that's what happened. I mean, we did Half Past Dead, and it must have done well enough for Sony for.
And plus, it's 2007, and everything's getting a sequel these days. So why not Half Past Dead 2? And they even fulfilled they even matched it to the first one, where you have the big white guy who can kick your ass, and then the street talking black guy. So it works.
There you go. That's Half Past Dead.
And I actually just got the chance to watch the film this afternoon, and it was a fun one.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Thank you very much. I gotta tell you, man, it was such a pleasure working with both of those guys. Obviously, Bill Goldberg being an athlete and stuff like that, we related a lot to a lot of the same things. And then Corrupt, again, very, very professional. I was very pleasantly surprised. I mean, we were doing a lot of dialogue changes on the spot, and that guy was just getting it every time, the nuances, and because his performance was the most complex because he had to bring some comedic value, but yet, when it came to the dramatic stuff, he had to really nail it, and I felt he did it.
Do you think that you started directing 10, 12, 13 years ago by now. And how much do you think that you've managed to grasp the dramatics of film since then?
You know, at first, when I directed my first feature called The Power Within, that was in '94, and at that point, you know, when I was directing, it was more of a technical thing. You know, trying to get the shots in, trying to make your days, and you know, trying to tell a story within that context. And then as I started doing more and more features, especially in probably about 2000 is when I started, 99, 2000 when I started actually producing and writing some of these films, I really wanted to get more emotionally attached to the characters, to the films, and really got more into the storytelling and left more of the technical thing to my DPs and some of the people around me. And I think in that respect I've grown a lot, matured a lot, because I really, you know, I'm more about the story and the characters than I'm about the action. And, you know, I've done hundreds and hundreds of fights and action films and stuff like that, but I really, really get more of a high now when I get...
Yeah, I failed to mention that. Oh, I was going to say, I failed to mention that when I made the introduction to the show, that you were not just some guy that went to film school and lucked his way into a directing job for Half Past Dead 2. You got your start, you were telling me last night. Actually, let's just hear about that, because it's a tremendous story.
Yeah, no, I was, you know, I've done martial arts since I was about 15, 16 years old, and I got into it because I was, you know, growing up in gangs and stuff like that, so I needed an edge. so you know, I got my butt kicked by rival gangs and stuff like that, and then I thought, man, I need to do something. I might not be able to beat up 5 guys, I'm taking one of them down with me. You know, and then out of the blue, after several years, one of my instructors, Sifu Eric Lee, he calls me up and he says, "Hey, Art, how about you want to get your butt kicked in a movie?" And in my head, I'm thinking, I get my butt kicked every night by you for free, and they're going to pay me? Shoot, I'm there. And that's how it started. I started doing stunts and films, and at the same time, I started delving into acting, a lot of little, you know, little independent films and stuff like that, and starring in a couple of small ones. And from then on, you know, fortunately, I was very, you know, such a big fan of the genre that I did very well, and so I started doing several films as you know, the stunt guy, an actor, a one-liner here, doing a lot of fights and stuff. And PM Entertainment was a company that I got hooked up with, and I was so blessed, because during this period of time was when the kickboxing films were really, really hot. And so they were doing so many films, so they were hiring me for all these movies. And out of the blue one day, they said, "Hey, do you want to," you know, one of the directors with them asked me if I wanted to choreograph his movies. And I thought, cool. You know, at first I thought, you know, I didn't know what the hell choreography was. I'm thinking, you know, dancing and stuff like that. So I said, I'm going to do, you know, West Side Story here, you know. And then I started to understand, you know, that you know, that it's all about rhythm and it's about music, and it really is, to be honest with you. I mean, one of the things I still give stunt fighting seminars, and one of the biggest things for all these tough macho guys that come in there, that screen fighting has more to do with music and dance and rhythm than it does with fighting, because you're just dancing. You're Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire out there. And anyway, so let me get back to this. What happened is that I did, you know, the director was very happy and the producers were very happy. So then I became PM's guy, you know, PM's fight choreographer. So every film, anytime they had a fight, they would call Art Camacho up. And then what I started doing was bringing my team of people with me, who, I mean, I would train from scratch. I've trained hundreds of people, you know, put hundreds of people in films and train them from scratch to screen fight. And after, like, you know, 30, 40 films, out of the blue, I had an experience where I was doing a film called, I think it ended up being called Magic Kid, and Justin Merhi, who's one of the owners of PM Entertainment, asked me to bring some of my friends down for this tournament scene. So we went out in the morning, and at first he asked me for maybe 20, 30 guys, and I thought, no problem. By the end of the day, he wanted like 600 people, you know, for free or next to nothing. And I made that commitment. I said, you know what, I'll do it. And so what happened was that I didn't know how, you know, how I was going to get 600 friends of mine to come down for free and hang out. So I started making some calls, and fortunately, people have heard of me, and so literally that day, we ended up getting him close to 1,000 people. And a friend of mine who was ADing for him at the time said, "Art, you know what? Your friends are going to be here. You don't want them to be here all day, and you know, come up with a plan of what we can do with all these bodies." And And so I was stressed, and so I came out with this, I mean, I'm telling you, man, 4 or 5 pages of camera directions and this and that and the other thing. And when I showed it to Joseph, we were at a meeting, because he was also directing the film, he kind of smirked a little, kind of laughed. And I thought he was laughing at me, and I'm a proud Mexican man. I go, nobody laughs at me. Don't pay me. Just don't laugh at me. You know, and so I walked out of the office. I mean, I went out of the meeting was over, and then Joseph came up to me, and he looked at me, and I was, you know, inside. I kept my hostility inside, but he asked me, he goes, Art, do you want to direct films? And I thought he was just, you know, just BSing. And so I said, yeah, sure, I'd love to. And the week after I got a deposit, then there you go, I became a film director. You know, and then my first film, like, so we were going back and forth on what the topic would be, and it would have to incorporate some of my skills, obviously, but I didn't just want to be the karate guy. So we kind of found a compromise project called The Power Within, which was a little bit of a Karate Kid-ish kind of thing, but more mystical and more delving into some of the philosophies that I have in martial arts. And that was it. That was the first film that I did. And I tell you, man, the first day, and I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but the first day when you're there on the set and you're calling the shots, my God, you talk about stress. You talk about stress. And with PM Entertainment, they had this formula down pat. I mean, Concord, all those guys have the formula down pat. And so you normally don't do more than a few takes per shot. But my first day, we were at Griffith Park. We had a Steadicam, and we're up there doing the first shot of the movie. And I tell you, man, it was like take number 5, take number 6. I'm sweating bullets. I said, I'm going to be fired my first day. That's the end of my career. And finally, after we got the first shot off, and it came out so beautiful, then it's like, okay, you get into your groove. And that's what I was telling you. At first, it was very technical. I was trying to be very, you know, transitions and just cute camera moves and stuff like that. And that was the focus a lot more than performances. And fortunately, the film did well and it came out well. But you know, obviously, as I grew, I wanted to get more.
And we had Richard Munchkin on the show just a couple of days ago. Your good friend from way back when, and he expressed the same kind of fear, utter fear, when he was traveling to Vegas to direct Dance or Die, his first film that we talked about in the show, and all of a sudden he realized that he was in charge of directing a movie, and he had no idea what to do.
Exactly. And I got to tell you, and I got to confess, after every film I do, whether it's choreographing, whether it's directing, or writing, whatever, every time I finish, it's like, phew, you know. They still haven't found out that I don't know what the heck I'm doing. You know, I'm serious, man. I pulled one over on them. But Munchkin is one of my biggest inspirations. I've seen that guy, and whether he's stressed out or whatever, the guy is the calmest person on the set. You never see the guy sweat. You never see him do anything. He just has that air of confidence.
That's the impression that I've gotten from him in the past. You got to be calm when you're a professional gambler. Never thought about that until now.
Exactly. He's got that poker face thing going on, man, and everyone could be all in chaos and the world's falling apart, but Munchkin is so cool.
Did you meet Don the Dragon Wilson during your time at PM Entertainment, or were you friends with him prior to that?
You know, I met him shortly before I started working with PM Entertainment because my instructor, again, was good friends with him and his manager at the time, Paul Maslak, and he started choreographing for him. So I met him first. I was going to be as a non-union fighter on one of his first films with Concord. I think it was Bloodfist 2 or 3. I think Bloodfist 3. So I had met him then, but I was a fan. I was a fan because he's a tremendous athlete, and then being at his house and stuff like that, and it's like, wow, this is cool. This is Don the Dragon Wilson, you know.